Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Week 1, right ahead of us. Texans coming into Baltimore to face the Ravens. And here with me today, one of my favorite people. I say that sometimes on the show, but this time is really one of my favorite people. Supported me from the beginning, which I really appreciate. Former Ravens editor, creator of Late for Work, Man of the Crowd. Now she's got her own podcast with her co-host Bobby Trossett, The Vault. You've probably seen that here on YouTube. Also available on all your streaming platforms. Sarah, thank you for coming on. And it looks like you guys are doing great over there. Are you having a good time with the Vault?
Yeah, it's a great time. We've been teasing this for a while. I told you I had a hard out in about 45 minutes. One of that is for an announcement we're hoping to make this week. Yeah, we're super excited about that. Enjoy working with Bobby and always enjoy coming on with you. You always come on with us, and happy to be on with Huddle It Up Films.
Love it, love it. Definitely part of my football family, and I mean it. Appreciate the support from the very beginning, and I'll have to give you and Bobby a lot of credit because it's got to be hard to put out that kind of content consistently with someone else. Like credit to both of you for being able to, life comes at you hard. I mean, you're out there on the streets right now, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
To be able to
literally.
get together, yeah, to be able to get together like that, though.
Yeah, no, but honestly, it's just one of those miracles, blessings in life. Like Bobby and I had never met. We had done a couple shows. I was a guest on a show a couple times at WBAL, and you decide to kind of like get into this without really knowing somebody. And I just feel like it's been an absolute blessing in my life. Him as a partner, a business partner. We've finally met one time in face to face during training camp, and he is a grinder. It just like you, and he works hard, always a positive attitude, which I like. I always like to keep things optimistic, and I just cannot believe how well we've been able to work together. I feel so blessed to be able to work with him.
See, that's great. That's great. I knew it too. You can tell from the show, your chemistry is just going to continue to grow. But we have some Ravens business to take care of. Sarah, I had to ask you this. This is really like my favorite question of the interview here. So I wanted to ask it first. You've been in the building. You've been there year round. You understand what it's like. Please take us inside what it's like in the castle from your experiences being there this time of year. Here we are 5 days away from the opener, all that work that's going in. What's it like? Is the energy different?
Oh, definitely. Like you're not worn down by the season yet. You're not like, and here's what's good about this year is there's already the week one excitement. Like you've been waiting to redeem yourself from however the season ended the year before. I mean, unless you win the Super Bowl, you feel like you always got something to prove. And all the hard work, the draft, the free agents that were added, all that kind of stuff. The anticipation is exciting. Then on top of that, the season opener is a home opener, so that's nice. You don't always get that. But then even on top of that, I was just saying this on the Vault the other day, like everybody's been picking up on, national media especially have been picking up on the vibes coming out of Baltimore. Um, Josina talked about it, Pat McAfee talked about it. Everybody's picking up on it. And I remember on the Pat McAfee show, Pat McAfee has one of his co-hosts is a big Steelers fan, right? He's always got that Steelers helmet when he's talking this and that. And he said something that's true because Pat McAfee was talking about the culture and how exciting things seem to be in Baltimore, from getting Lamar re-signed to getting OBJ signed to drafting Zay Flowers, all this kind of stuff. And the Steelers guy is like, well, but I feel like the Ravens always have good culture. I feel like the Ravens always have good vibes. And that's true. But again, it feels like a whole other level this year with all the work that Eric DeCosta has put in over the offseason, the new pieces that have been added, the health, like the last 2 years you're coming in, you're excited about week one, but it's like, is everybody going to be healthy? It's been Ronnie Stanley. It's been all this stuff. And there's some things like there's Marlon Humphrey and Tyus Bowser, but we know those aren't like long-term injuries. And so it's like when you have the work of what seems to be an excellent offseason, we won't know if it's excellent until we see how the Ravens perform. But I guarantee you, inside that building, it's the locker room's happy. There's high vibes. And they've got a new offense. There's actually probably a little bit of nervousness. John Harbaugh said this the other day. He's like, hey, we're excited to see what this offense looks like just as much as you guys are, because we haven't played in the preseason. This is all new pieces, a new coordinator. So, like, while you're excited, you're also like, there's that, excited nervousness too. It'd be like, are we really going to be able to put this all together week one? And so all those feelings are for sure in there at one winning drive at the Castle.
Man, that's great. It's great info. In fact, Sarah talked about this yesterday with WBAL TV's Pete Gilbert. You may know Pete. He's been around for 20 years. And we were going back to last year, and, we agreed pretty much that last year was different. The culture is always going to be good under John Harbaugh, but the injuries kind of wore this team down. There was a lot of stuff going on. And then when Lamar got hurt again, and then the contract, and there was a lot of tension this offseason. And to get that all behind us and to be heading into the season like we're heading in, it's definitely a different feel. But I imagine being in there from the cafeteria workers that everybody speaks highly of, to the people that fix stuff, to the people that clean up. I feel like this week has got to be special for everybody that works there in any kind of capacity.
Yeah, it really does trickle down. After a loss, you can feel it throughout the building. You can feel it. When you would go in Monday mornings, we would always have a big, for my department, we'd have a big department meeting and kind of get, content and have plans and all that kind of stuff. And you could just feel it, because you kind of coaches are angry, and players are upset, and not that they take it out on you. They don't do that. They're always classy. But you know how it is. When you just you're coming off a loss, you're just there's not all the smiles that you're used to, all that kind of stuff. So when you feel the excitement from coaches or the front office and all of that, it really does reverberate throughout the entire building. And so, it's just as crazy as you kind of mentioned, where Ravens flock was, 5 months ago, such a depressive state, not knowing what was going to happen with Lamar, getting knocked out again early, all that stuff. It feels like night and day from where we were even 5 months ago.
And I'm hoping that this good fortune, you got to taste the bitterness to know the sweet is sweet. Original lyric over here. But joy and pain, sunshine and rain, all that kind of good stuff. I feel like the last couple of years has just been such a grind on us, and we've seen the glimpses, and then stuff happens, and 2 years carry over. So I'm hoping all that karma built up, all that goodwill is headed our way this year, because the Ravens deserve it. We as fans deserve it, to really see what everybody's capable of. I wanted to ask you too, a name that came up very late yesterday, and I wanted to ask you about this player in particular, is Mark Andrews. And we talked for about 40 minutes, and Pete's like, we haven't even talked about Mark Andrews. It's been 40 minutes. And we talked a little bit about, his injury, and, how he doesn't seem like he's in the best of mood. Pete said that's a competitor in him. He's a competitive guy, and he wants to be out there. And so I had to ask him about that. But I wanted to ask you more about the long term, the big view of Mark Andrews. We have everybody healthy. Mark's out there with everybody else. Do you see his role being pretty much the same? Do you see him still being Lamar Jackson's guy, still being as big of the part of the offense as he ever was? Or is everybody just going to have to give a little bit because there's so many talented players?
I do think it'll be the same, where it will be different is in a way that it'll be different for Lamar, in that when there's more weapons on the field, Lamar doesn't have to be Superman 24/7. And so Superman, or Batman needs his Robin or whatever. And I don't know who Superman's sidekick is. He's kind of do his own thing. But I just feel like Mark Andrews in some ways he could end up having more yards, maybe not as many catches, but the yards per catch could go up, because how many times did we see when Lamar would throw it to Mark Andrews that like he's in a sea of jersey colors of the opposite team, you know? So, one report that I saw super interesting is, I believe on Twitter, somebody's asking Jeff Zrebiec. Now, I was only able to make it to one training camp practice. The one that I went to, Mark was still heavily involved, but it was actually the very first practice. And I like Zay Flowers was like, whoo, jumps off the field at you. OBJ, that was the practice, that very first practice where he faked the back shoulder, the back shoulder, and then went and got it. So like, obviously Zay and OBJ were standing out, but it was still like Mark is there. And so I was only there for one practice. Jeff Zrebiec's been there for everything. And so a fan had asked him on Twitter, X, hey, so do you see, what was it? What was going on? Oh, remember when there was like, Mark Andrews like slammed his helmet? That was the report. And then Jeff Zrebiec had noted that he had slammed his helmet because the play before he had like dropped a pass, or I don't know if he dropped it or they just didn't connect. And then the next play, another wide receiver had made the touchdown. And so somebody had asked.
That's kind of why I asked Pete yesterday, because there was a lot of conjecture from fans that they're reaching, oh, Mark's not going to be happy, this, that, and the other thing. So that's kind of why I wanted to follow up and ask you this question. Pete just said, look, he's a competitor. He's going to be involved as ever. He wants things done right. Now, if he catches 2 passes a game over a month period, then we'll revisit it. But Mark's just as hard as on himself as anybody else.
Right, exactly. So what Jeff had said in response to like, and I love that he responds with facts. He's like, look, as good as all these wide receivers additions have been, he goes, Mark Andrews has had double the catches of every single other weapon. Double. Okay. So Mark Andrews is still getting his. And it's, and this is, and whatever, we have to like, this is what's going to happen. Just watch. It's already kind of happening among fans, and it's a fair question. But I guarantee you the national media, this is what they do. When one person is succeeding, instead of just celebrating that, what the media does is they'll go to the guy who's isn't as blowing up as much. Okay. So it'll happen if the passing game starts going off. Say like all the wide receivers are happy, Mark Andrews is happy. Can't just celebrate that. You got to go to J.K. Dobbins. Hey, J.K., how do you feel about this? You're not running as much as you used to. Like, how do you feel? Or if the running game starts to explode, they're going to go to OBJ. If Zay Flowers starts to explode, OBJ, you came here. You got 1 year. You wanted to how are you feeling? It's Zay. And like, I'm already seeing it happening where like people are talking so much about Zay, and like Skip Bayless was on with Josina Anderson. And he's like, oh, well, that used to be OBJ that, his name was always getting called. But guess what? OBJ is singing Zay Flowers praises. Like he was just on the Rich Eisen show, and he said, you watch, people are going to have Zay Flowers in their top 5. He's top 5. Already, exactly. So like, I hate this kind of stuff where it's like, oh, is Mark jealous? No, to Pete's point, Mark's competitive. He's mad that he didn't connect on a play that he should have connected. That's it. Now, do guys all want to get the ball? Sure, of course, all of that. But not everybody's built to be jealous. Not everybody's built to be jealous. There are people that are built to celebrate their teammates. And Mark Andrews, he's just a serious dude. That's his personality. He's a serious dude, and he's always going to be competitive. No way do I see him being upset about his role or anything like that, especially if he's still getting double the catches of everybody else.
That's what I'm thinking. And Sarah, I don't know if he'll get as many targets or what have you, but I think you hit on it perfectly. He's going to be more efficient, and whatever those efficiency numbers are, yards per target, yards per catch, completion percentage when targeted, all of that stuff is going to go up, because there's no doubt the Ravens are much improved on the outside. It's going to take a ton of pressure off of Mark, and that's got to be more fun. I mean, I can tell you just from the time I played that the more you have more fun when you're winning, and it's also a lot more fun when you're not being double teamed and triple teamed. Not that happened to me a ton, but still, it's a lot more fun, makes the game easier to be able to show off your talents. And I guarantee you that we saw it at the stadium practice, Sarah. Zay Flowers was out with a little stomach flu or whatever it was, stomach bug, and OBJ was still ramping up. Bateman wasn't back yet. So you had, guys like Prochet and Duvernay, no disrespect to them, but they're not, Zay and OBJ and Bateman are starters for a reason. And Mark just, ate that day because, of course, Lamar doesn't want to get shut out at stadium practice when everybody's watching. You gotta connect, you gotta produce. So, yeah, we saw him rely on Mark a lot, and that'll happen. I think when times get tough, when he needs somebody, Mark's going to be right there in the middle of the field. It's going to be a nightmare. I mean, Sarah, maybe you could speak to this. The team picture was yesterday, and I don't know. I was just kind of looking and just looking like the la-di-da team picture day, and I had a moment where I was like, "Damn, it's a lot of talent on that team."
It's a lot of weapons. It's a lot of weapons. It just is like, you that team picture. You just look at the front row in itself, where you got all the single digits players, where you got Roquan Smith. We all know what he did for this defense. Then you've got no number one. We're reserving that for Lamar Jackson. Remember, he said he wanted to move to number one after he wins the Super Bowl. But you got Tyler Huntley number 2, OBJ number 3, Zay Flowers number 4, Jalen Armour Davis number 5. Hopefully that just means he's going to be as great as the other guys that are single digits. But you keep going up. Rashad Bateman number 7, Lamar Jackson number 8, Justin Tucker number 9. Like, these are stars. Like, everywhere you look, there are stars. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't concerns. Obviously, we all want to see what's going to happen with the depth at cornerback. We want to see what's going to happen with these young pass rushers. Are they going to take the next step? We want to know, is this offense really going to come all together? We've never seen a Lamar Jackson offense like what we're being told this offense is going to look like. Can it, so it's a lot of pieces coming together. And, like even the other day, I was watching Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp. They're now on the First Take together, and they're talking about who their MVPs are going to be. Stephen A. chose Lamar Jackson, and the one caveat that Shannon had back, he's like, "Hey, I like that pick, but this is a new offense." And he's like, and nowadays guys don't play in the preseason anymore. He's like, for me, when I was a player, I needed the preseason because you are rusty. And he was like, you try to use, like the Commanders joint practice, and you try to use that as a substitute. He's like, there's no substitute for getting out there. He goes, so he felt like the Ravens offense, you got to get ready for rustiness or working through whatever challenges that you just have to work through being new together. So there's a part of me that's like ridiculously excited because I've never seen weapons like this on offense. Like, it boggles my mind to have Lamar and OBJ and Zay and Rashad and Mark and JK and even backups like Gus, and the offensive line is looking, pretty good. And so, like, on paper, it looks phenomenal, and you want to like celebrate and get excited early, but you also kind of want to be like, wait, hold on a minute. This is all brand new. Let's give them time. Let's not be unfair with the expectations. So, but I'm with you looking at a team picture. I'm like, holy cow, there are weapons all over the place. I hope they can put it all together.
Yeah, talented guys. Even, going through the 70s, there's Kevin Zeitler sitting there. It's like, well, man, another great player. So I share a similar concern, but I think ultimately it'll be a good thing. My concern is the beginning of the schedule is front-loaded with these AFC North 3 out of 5 road games, all division games, all very important. And I see the trajectory of the season kind of like 2019, where it takes a little while to get together maybe, and then things just take off. Unanimous MVP aside, 14-2 aside. I'm just talking about the flow of the season. But my optimistic part, I'm going to run this by you too, something I ran by Pete yesterday, is that teams have never seen Monken and Lamar. So as much uncertainty as we have, the other team has no idea what's coming. They don't know how this is going to operate. They've seen Monken before. They've seen Lamar before, but they've never seen the two together, Lamar executing Monken's offense. And, of course, each quarterback is going to have things tailored to him, have their own touch, have his own touch on things. So I think ultimately, like we saw how long it took the league to start making adjustments to Greg Roman and Lamar. I think the same type of thing is going to happen with Lamar and Monken, and that can ultimately benefit us.
Absolutely. That's the other side of it is it's like, can you put it all together? And on the other flip side, it's like nobody knows what's coming. And from what I understand, it's going to be a pretty drastically different offense. And obviously they're still going to run, but the way they run, is there going to be more zone? Is there zone in there? Is there zone running rather than, just power? Is there going to be, we know there's going to be running backs are going to be getting in the pass game more than they have in the past. We know he's going to attack the perimeter more than Greg Roman did. And so, yeah, I mean, teams don't know what to do. The other thing, Jason, that may be in their benefit is they do try to get through whatever kinks that there could be is they don't have the worst quarterback schedule within the first 4 games. Of course, they have Joe Burrow in week 2, but they could be just as rusty with Joe missing basically all of training camp with his calf injury. But you have a rookie quarterback week 1 in Houston, never played before. Then in week 3, you've got another rookie quarterback. By that point, you'll only have 2 games under him. Remind me who week 4 is.
That's when the Browns come. We're at Cleveland. I mean,
okay,
it's at Cleveland, at Pittsburgh, and then Tennessee. To your point, who knows if they're starting a rookie by then?
Right, and so like it's not the worst schedule. Obviously, we do have those AFC North games early, but like 2 of those first 3 games, hey, those are like you'd hope the rookie quarterback is making more mistakes than maybe this new offense that's more veteran laden. But it's new, so there could be some grace in there, and then we'll just have to see what's going on with the Bengals week 2. I mean, that's going to be a huge litmus test for sure. But there are, like you said, there's a flip side to all this that it's like, well, maybe it could work in their advantage.
Yes, I think it will. When people look at the schedule and they see some hard hitting games towards the end, I think that they look at the beginning of the schedule and think that it's okay. This is the easy part, but I don't necessarily think that that's the case because you're going on the road for 4 out of 6, ending in a trip in London. I mean, that's rough. And then you got all the new stuff. You're still trying to figure out how the secondary is going to fit together, all that other stuff. So ultimately, I think it'll benefit us for sure. But let's not read too much. I would say let's not read too much. Let's give them time. Let's be a little bit patient watching this thing come together because, Sarah, the team in September is completely different from the team in December, for better or worse. We see it every year. A team will start 2-6 and then go 9-0 to close the season or something like that. Sometimes it's like when you catch the other teams.
Yeah, it's when you catch the other team, it's a game of attrition. It's just like we know this better than anybody in Baltimore. Like I feel like Eric DaCosta has put together playoff contending, maybe even Super Bowl contending rosters the last 2 years. But when you don't have, Lamar Jackson at the end of it, or when you have a run of injuries like the Ravens had in 2021, like it's just, or when the Bengals got word at first that Joe Burrow hurt his calf, like that's your season right there. So it's good news for them that it was only, that he's back. And so it's like, so much of this is just like who is still standing by the time we hit December and January.
That's right. And we play all of the NFC or AFC South this year, so maybe your Anthony Richardsons and CJ Strouds. By the time that the Bengals play them, that could work to our advantage. We're getting them early, home opener. By the way, Sarah, this Sunday, the backup rookie to the rookie center who was supposed to start, drafted in the 2nd round, Juice Struggs, gets hurt, put on IR. Their 2nd string center is a 6th round rookie pick starting for the Texans this week. Tweeted that's out this morning. They're already down on IR. They're starting left guard. They're starting center. So you're going to have a backup 6th round rookie starting at center for the Texans with a rookie quarterback. And Sarah, they've run this. Let's shift to the game. I want to get your thoughts on this. he runs the Shanahan Kubiak type stuff. So it's a lot of that stretch zone where the ball is snapped and the offensive lineman kind of head sideways in tandem, for lack of a better way to describe it. But that combination up the middle of backup left guard, losing your left guard and center from the start against guys like Michael Pierce, Justin Matabike, who have seen this scheme. They do it in their sleep. I mean, we see it with the Browns a lot. It could spell big trouble for the Texans right away if we're getting this kind of pressure up the middle, not to mention the blitzes from Roquan and PQ and all the disguises that we like to run up there.
Those guys better eat. They have got to eat for sure. Yeah, I want to see, like we keep talking about Matabike having like a breakout year, and he's always been solid. The breakout year is more corresponding with sacks, right? So that's how guys really break out. But Michael Pierce, let's have a bounce back year. I want to see, yeah, like, and this is a perfect recipe, by the way, Jason, to cover up any issues that they may have in the secondary when we're waiting for Marlon Humphrey to come back. Like, you couldn't ask for a better recipe in week 1 to be like, all right, let's go. The defensive line is supposed to be, well, not the strength. Actually, the safeties are a strength. The inside linebackers are a strength. And the interior defensive line, everything on the interior feels like a strength for sure.
Yes.
So this is where they got to eat, where if you've got 2 guys down on the offensive line for your opponent, you've got to dominate and help out your corners, who have basically, the vast majority of the corners have missed almost all of training camp in the preseason. So this is where they're going to have to come up big and cover up any weaknesses that may be going on out there.
It's going to be a fun game, Sarah. Just from there's always unknown with week 1, but the Texans, you look at their secondary, it's a pretty good one. They ranked high, and it wasn't just yards against because they were a bad team and nobody had to throw on them. It was just all the advanced numbers and the quarterback rating when targeted, all that. They drafted Derek Stingley, I think, number 3 overall last year. I think ahead of Sauce Gardner, which blew my mind, but he did well. They have Jalen Petrie. So they have some really nice pieces in the secondary, which is kind of like interesting for us to see how Lamar and Monken and OBJ and how Zay Flowers is going to be used against a pretty good secondary. And then they have 2 good tackles, Sarah. They have Laramie Tunsil, who of Ravens almost fame, him and Ronnie Stanley going in the same draft. And then they paid their right tackle, Titus Howard, this offseason. So they have 2 good tackles. Expectations for Dafi Oweh and David Ojabo this year. Just what's your take on them? They're going to have a nice test this week, even though I think the Ravens have a big opportunity in the middle. These are 2 pretty good tackles on this team.
I actually want to turn that question back around on you, if you don't mind, just because you are the film study guy. For me, I have not seen Dafi Oweh. He hasn't played in the preseason. I have not been out at training camp. So all I can do is rely upon reports, the same reports that you rely upon, which is that he's been a training camp star. That being said, he was a training camp star last year, and it didn't, all the way translate into the regular season. What I do want to turn back around on you. So with David Ojabo, obviously no secret. We all got to look at him in the preseason. Didn't make a lot of noise. I get the feeling, especially after talking or listening to Eric DaCosta and him saying, we saw in practice, like he made very clear when he spoke with media, we saw in practice what he can do. We saw in training camp what he can do. There's been talk about maybe he wasn't trying to make noise in the preseason, wasn't trying to bring out all of his tools and all of his moves, that maybe he was more getting a feel for the reps, and rather than, trying to show off, and obviously he's new. What did you see on your film study? Do you feel like David Ojabo was really trying to make noise, or do you feel like he kind of kept things in a lower gear?
I think lower gear is a great way to describe it, because there's an urgency with David Ojabo as a pass rusher, kind of in the same way that you see Zay Flowers as a route runner and a receiver. Obviously 2 different positions, and Zay's quicker than quick. But for a pass rusher, Ojabo is very quick. So, yes, I'd say very vanilla, lower gear. And I've seen David Ojabo in high gear. I've seen the spin move. I've seen the dip and rip, the cross chop, all that stuff that you need to see from David Ojabo. I don't worry about him as a pass rusher at all. I think he's going to be more than fine. I think that he was just kind of feeling out the preseason. That's the best way I could say. I saw just a lot of bull rushes and nothing else. I will say, though, the edge containment is one thing I'm keeping my eye on. They cannot let runs get outside, especially when you got PQ, Roquan, and Kyle Hamilton lurking around the box. You got to play a team defense, and I know it's just preseason, but force that back in the inside. And you can't be a liability out there in the run game and expect to play a lot either on any team, especially when teams are going to want to run the ball to keep you off balance. So that's one thing I want to say on Ojabo. Oweh, I will give you one thing to look for, Sarah, and you can look at this on your TV on Sundays, and if you rewatch the game. Odafe Oweh has got to get off the snap at the same time everybody else does. This is my main bugaboo, and I thought about doing a cut-up, but like you, Sarah, I like to keep it positive, and I could have made it positive, but I have a feeling people would have ran with it, and it would have just been all these snaps of Odafe Oweh being the last one off the snap. Like the rest of the people are like this, and he's still in his stance.
Interesting.
Yep. If you're a speed rusher, Sarah, and you know how hard it is to get sacks on good left tackles anyway, you don't get them off the good left tackles. If you're a speed rusher, you cannot afford that half second, quarter second, whatever it ends up being on my thing where I pause it. So when you're watching on Sunday, find Odafe Oweh and see how he gets off the snap. Because I think that if he does that, it'll just open the whole world up for him. I think it's really hard to get any kind of pass rush when the left tackle's sitting there, and then you end up just fighting for pressure. So his pressure numbers look pretty good because you eventually get there, but you're not really endangering anybody.
That's hilarious the way I just kind of envisioned that, where like the tackle's up here and he's been here for like a second, and then Odafe Oweh comes off. Okay, so again, because I'm not a technician or anything like that, how does is he just not anticipating correctly? Like, how do you teach that?
I don't know. That's something that I think we saw when he was slid inside closer to the ball, that all of a sudden his get off was good. He was facing sloppier guards. It's a shorter space, so he could kind of make up the distance. But I got really excited. I don't know if you remember this, but Chuck Smith was working on with these guys on this drill, and it looked like a 5 to 10 yard race, but they had the old football on a stick, and it was a drill just for basically getting off the snap. So get off the snap and then get out of your stance and head upfield. It wasn't any pass rush moves. So I'm sure they're working on it, but I really don't think that we've got a chance to see what Odafe Oweh, like the signature move and all that. Okay, I understand. But if you're going to be a speed rusher, you've got to be able to at least threaten that edge to work your counters off of it, or else they're just going to be sitting there and you're never going to have anybody off balance. So that's what I want to see from Odafe Oweh. I'm in wait and see mode because, like you said, after 2 years in the league, somebody should have pointed that out. You should have got that fixed. Like, to me, that's just looking at the ball and just watching the ball like you're taught when you're young. So I'm not sure I don't have a real positive thesis on why, but
well,
yeah.
I will say back to the containing the edge. I would anticipate for a little while at least, especially if the Ravens are nervous about it. As you know, Clowney, people always he hasn't lived up to expectations as a first round pick in terms of sacks, and this, he's phenomenal against the run. So if they need to have Clowney over there on the edge in obvious running situations, that would be a solution if David Ojabo is not up to speed yet. But I'm sure Clowney would also like to be out down there on the obvious passing downs, but he can also be kicked inside. So so there's ways to kind of protect if David Ojabo is not sealing the edge the way you'd like just yet.
That's right. And hey, we build a lead, and it takes a village. So the offense does their job. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. But Sarah, promised, I know that you're out and about, taking your time for Huddle It Up Films, part of the football family today. And I can't thank you enough. I had a good time, by the way, sparring with you the last time. I don't think I'd want to argue with you though much. You kind of you're tough. You're tough.
It's funny. I like said this the other day. I'm for sure a nice person, but I definitely enjoy debate. And so I'm very, I'm definitely direct with that, but there's no emotion behind it. Like, I'm a passionate person, but there's no like emotion or feelings being hurt or something like that. So, I think Bobby, that's been something he's discovered along the way for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because quite frankly, we end up agreeing a lot, and we're both open minded.
Yeah.
We like to learn, we like to listen. So for us to actually have some predictions and make our cases for it, I had a good time.
So wait, real quick, I ended up with 50 out of 53 correct, counting that
Me too.
in the moment I changed the Tyus Bowser. Okay, you too. So what we were both, it's funny because you had the last minute feeling that you needed to get Cleveland back in, which was correct, but you took out Saleh instead of Mustipher.
And
really, it was like hindsight's 2020. But I'm like, what was I thinking that I thought that Mustipher had no chance of making it through on waivers? Like, why was I so afraid of that? So,
I mean, I was afraid just that they didn't want to have like center's a leadership position, a communication position. Like, I just thought that they didn't want to mess around with that. And I don't know. Yeah. I was mad at myself because I was looking at Cleveland and Mustipher for the longest time. And then I was thinking about putting 26 on offense and start handshaking Worley, and I did. And I was upset at myself for that. And then, but yeah, at least well, I'm not going to celebrate people not making the team, but I did get it right elsewhere. But yeah, 50 out of 53 for both of us. So another tie.
Another tie, and we both went down a notch because last year we only missed 2. So
that's okay. Next year it's going to be much better. Next year we'll get up to 52. Watch, we're going to hit every number till we get 53.
There we go. I was going to say you can't have a goal at 52. Like, our goal, it's got to be 53. That's our goal.
Okay, all right, I'm with you. I like your high standards. That's great. Right. That's great. All right, Sarah, I'll let you go. I know you got to get out of there, and I could talk football with you all day. But maybe we can catch up during the bye week. We'll see if we can get Bobby on in his busy schedule. But I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invitation. Always good to talk with you, Jason.
All right, so with that, I want to say thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Sarah, say good day to the people now.
Good day.
Good day.